So leave us with some words of encouragement. Let's say someone's watching this, they're questioning their faith, they're really struggling, whether it's in silence or publicly. What would you say to them if you were to speak to their souls?
I would say that look at the whole metamorphosis of the oyster. That when the oyster is born, there's nothing inside of that oyster until the oyster has been thrown some hurricanes, until that oyster has had some parasites try to get inside the shell and the sand inside of there trying to push it and push it. That oyster has nothing inside until the storms of life have crashed over it. And then at the end, when you're able to open up that oyster, you see a beautiful pearl. And that pearl is the treasure that oyster has been granted and has been given because of the storms. And when you look at the whole word picture, even of a butterfly, when a monarch butterfly lands on a milkweed and lays an egg, she laid a butterfly, but that butterfly had to go through the metamorphosis and had to go through the darkness and had to go through the caterpillar stage. When we think of our own lives, how we've had to go through things until we end up in the chrysalis and into the darkest moments of our lives. And in those darkest moments of our lives, our spirit man is saying, "You're a butterfly. You're a butterfly. Always remember you're a butterfly." And then when that butterfly is ready to emerge, to fly, it realizes its destiny. We were destined with a purpose and a plan for our lives, a plan to prosper us and not to harm us, but to give us a hope for our future. Before the foundations of time, we were molded and we were created to be placed in our mother's womb for such a time as this. And if you have gone through darkness and you've gone through trauma, girl, you're not alone, because we all have. If we were all to stand inside of an auditorium and I was to say, every time I say something, and if it relates to you, stand up. If I was to say, who in this auditorium has been raped, has been sexually abused, has been traumatized, who has been a victim of domestic violence, by the time I asked all these questions, every single woman in that room would be standing up. The difference is that there's not every single woman in that room is really ready to take the journey of what it takes to heal. It doesn't take much to wear that t-shirt to say, "Yep, I'm trauma. Yep, I've gone through this." But it takes courage and it takes determination to say, "This is not going to define me any longer."